Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Gopijana Vallabha Grivadari Jaya Grivadari Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yasodanandana Raja Dhanaranjana Jaya Raja Dhanaranjana Yamuna Tira Bharachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Yamuna Tira Bharachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Kopidana Balaba Grivardari Jaya Grivardari. 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 Yasodanandana Rajadana Ranjana Jaya Brajadana Ranjana. Yasodanandana Rajadana Ranjana Jaya Brajadana Ranjana. Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari. Yamuna Tiravarachari Jaya Kunja Vihari. Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramhansa Brihadakacharya Asadhara Satushi Shiman His Divine Grace Lacey Bhaktivedanta Smaraj Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande Haribo, Slava Zavrani Bhakta, Slava Shri Guru Shri Gurangi, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhute, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane, Namaste Saraswatunde Ve Gauravani Pacharane, Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Satarne. Om Agana Timanandasya Gananjana Salakaya Chaksur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaham Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vidham Dham Sajivam Sarvaitam Savadutam Pradana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shiva Sakans Vitam Cha Hey Krishna Karna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishubhanu Sudadevi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pranitinanda Shadwaiti Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 8, The Churning of the Milk Ocean, Text number 9. Tasyam chakru spriham sarve sasura sura manava Rupo Darya Vayovarna Mahi Makshitpa Chetasaha Tasyam Chakru Spriham Sarve Sasara Sura Manava Rupau Dwarya Vayuvarna Mahimakshipta Chetasa Ladies, Sarve Sura Sura Manava Upadarya Vayovarna mahikshipta chetasa. Tasyam, unto her, chakru, did, spriham, desire, sarve, everyone, sasura, asura, manava, the demigods, the demons, and the human beings. Rupa Odarya, by the exquisite beauty and bodily features. Vaya, youth. Varna, complexion. Mahima, glories. Akshipta, agitated. Chetasa, their minds. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Because of her exquisite beauty, her bodily features, her youth, her complexion, and her glories, everyone, including the demigods, the demons, and the human beings, desired her. They were attracted because she is the source of all opulences. Purport: who in this world does not want to possess wealth, beauty, and the social responsibility that come from these opulences? People generally desire material enjoyment, material opulence, and the association of aristocratic family members. Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam. Material enjoyment entails money, beauty, and the reputation they bring, which can all be achieved by the mercy of the Goddess of Fortune. The Goddess of Fortune, however, never remains alone. As indicated in the previous verse by the words Bhagavat Para, she is the property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is enjoyable only by Him. If one wants the favor of the Goddess of Fortune, Mother Lakshmi, because she is by nature Bhagavat Para, one must keep her with Narayan. The devotees who always engage in the service of Narayan, Narayana Parayana, can easily achieve the favor of the Goddess of Fortune without a doubt. But materialists who try to get the favor of the Goddess of Fortune only possess her by personal enjoyment are frustrated. Theirs is not a good policy. The celebrated demon Ravana, for example, wanted to deprive Ramachandra of Lakshmi, Sita, and thus be victorious. But the result was just the opposite. Sita, of course, was taken by force by Lord Ramachandra, and Ravana and his entire material empire were vanquished. The Goddess of Fortune is desirable for everyone, including human beings. But one should understand that the Goddess of Fortune is the exclusive property of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One cannot achieve the mercy of the Goddess of Fortune unless one prays both to her and to the Supreme Enjoyer, the Personality of Godhead. Text again. Dasyam chakru spriham sarve sarasura sura manava rupa darya vayovarna mahimakshipta chetasa. Because of her exquisite beauty, her bodily features, her youth, her complexion, and her glories, everyone, including the demigods, the demons, and the human beings, desired her. They were attracted because she is the source of all opulences. Namo Vishnu Varaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paskyatyade Siddharane. Source of all opulences is the Goddess of Fortune, and the Goddess of Fortune is never without Krishna, without her husband. So that's an eternal fact. Just like Ravana wanted to steal Sita, but actually it is said that when Ravana came to steal Sita, Agni Devi took Sita away and replaced her with Vedavati. So actually Ravana never even got near Sita. He stole not Sita but Vedavati, who in a previous lifetime had cursed Ravana. She was doing meditation to get Krishna as her husband for many thousands of years, and Ravana was flying overhead in his Pushpana airplane, and he saw this beautiful woman meditating, and he came in order to seduce her, but she wanted nothing to do with him. So he grabbed her by the hair, as he usually did, and tried to drag her away, but with her hand, she simply cut her hair off. Reminds us of Krishna, when Krishna entered into into Mathura, and there was one washerman with the king's clothing, and Krishna requested, if you can give us some clothing for myself and my cowherd boys, that would be very nice. And unfortunately, this particular washerman was a follower of Kamsa, and he started to preach to Krishna, which is not a good idea, and say, my dear Krishna, that these clothes belong to the king, and I have the personal experience that if someone actually tries to take possessions that belong to the king's men will arrest him and chastise him. So Krishna didn't like that, so he took his hand and he cut the washerman's head off. For those who are expert at martial arts, they know it's not so easy to cut someone's head off just with your hand. Even with a knife, it's not so easy. But Krishna, nothing is an impediment for Krishna. If Lord Balaram could kill someone with a piece of grass, so surely Krishna can cut off someone's head with simply his side of his hand. In any case, Vedavati, she cut off her hair, and she cursed Ravana that I'm going to come back and get you. And then she started a fire within herself, burnt herself to ashes, and Ravana lost interest in her. Of course, later on she took birth as and Agni substituted the actual Sita for Vedavati, and took Sita to wherever Agni lives. And Vedavati was kidnapped by Ravana, and as a result of that kidnapping, Lord Ramachandra came and defeated Ravana. So Sita is never separated from Lord Ramachandra, because she's spiritual. She's on a different platform of existence. Therefore, a materialist like Ravana can never touch her. Just like in the Bhagavatam it says that when Lord Vedavyas had when Narada Muni told Vyasadeva to meditate upon Krishna in order to understand Krishna, because we can't understand Krishna in any other way other than meditating on him with devotion. Krishna doesn't reveal himself just by our mental effort. He revealed, or by demanding that he come. Krishna reveals himself to the submissive devotee who thinks of him with devotion and love and service. So Vedavyas was quite qualified in order to think about Krishna with devotion, because he's an incarnation of Krishna, empowered incarnation. And therefore it says in this first canto, 7th chapter, bhakti-yogena manasi samyak pranihite mole, that Vyasadeva was able to connect with Krishna and experience him by bhakti-yoga, by the loving attitude. Bhakti-yogena manasi samyak pranihite mole. And that loving attitude is only manifested fully with a completely pure mind and a completely pure heart, completely pure intentions. Apaishat Purusham Purna. And then he saw that behind Krishna was Maya. So we're living behind Krishna right now. If you can't find Krishna, it's because you're looking the wrong direction. Apaishat Purusham Purna. Maya cha tad apashraya. Because Maya was behind Krishna. So we're all behind. And if we try to catch up, we might eventually catch up to Krishna. But right now we're going the wrong direction in the material world, or we're looking the wrong way. We're looking to enjoy this material energy, and therefore we're trying to enjoy illusion. Even the scientists say it's an illusion. But they're an illusion, so they can't really act. They don't know how to act properly in the illusion, or how to get out of the illusion. According to the scientists, what we're looking at is 99.99% space. That is all space. That's why we're all spaced out all the time. Because we're living in space, practically speaking, and it just has the appearance of some kind of reality. Because some, what they call atoms, and different varieties of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego, are put together in a certain way. We identify these forms as reality. But they're Urdvam alamatakshakam, Ashvatam prahur avyayam, Chidam siyasya parnani yes tvam vedas savedavit. That there's a banyan tree and it has its roots upward. And its leaves are down. That one who knows this tree is said to be the knower of the Vedas. So if you ever saw a tree with its roots up and its branches down, you know it's a dead tree. Trees can't live with its roots up and the branches down, unless you put some soil up and hold it, pack it together so it doesn't fall down. In any case, this material world is just the reflection of the real tree in the spiritual world. And there, all the living entities exist in spiritual bodies beyond our present perception. As a matter of fact, we don't even perceive our own selves, what to speak of Krishna or anyone else. Krishna is so powerful that he can appear in the material world in his Archa Vigraha form. And as a matter of fact, he's so powerful he can appear anywhere, anytime he wants. But he makes himself visible, generally speaking, to the eyes and through the material, to our eyes through the material elements. But his original form is completely spiritual and can only be seen how? Does anyone know the verse from the Brahma Samhita which says how we can see Krishna? Yes. Premanjana, with the eyes. Anjana means an ointment. So in Ayurvedic medicine, they put ointments on the eyes to cure cataracts and things like that. An anjana, with a salakaya. Salakaya is the stick, the instrument that you apply the anjana with. Om agana timarandasya gananjana salakaya. Salakaya is the instrument that you use the anjana, you put it on the eyes in order to cure them of some disease. So premanjana, that ointment of love, is the only way that Krishna reveals himself within our heart. And love manifests itself naturally when we get over our attachment and our aversions towards this material world and the living entities within it. We like certain arrangements and certain people, the way they act in the material world, certain modes of nature that they act in. For instance, if we're in the mode of ignorance, then our friends are usually staying at the bar with us all the time. Not exactly doing brahminical activities, but because we're similar to them, we're also intoxicated like they are. Therefore, we can identify with each other. Those in the mode of passion, trying to make money, they form associations of businessmen so they can learn how they cheat other people and become more expert at it. And those in mode of goodness, they go out to the forest with each other and listen to the birds sing, and they talk about how beautiful the leaves look like, etc., etc. So birds of a feather flock together. And that way, by association, we remain within this material conceptions of life. And our eyes are not able to actually see reality. What to speak of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we don't even see what's taking place in front of our very eyes. What to speak of which is beyond our present ability to perceive. For instance, in the 11th canto, 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, in order to let Arjuna see what's going on in the material world, he gave him demigod eyes, which means that he had to reduce his vision from love to demigod eyes. And therefore he could see the universal form. Now for us, it's probably not a reduction. If we could see the universal form, it would be, we don't exactly necessarily see with demigod eyes right now. We see with our eyes that were given to us by our 6th grade teacher in public school. Therefore, if we want to raise our vision, we try to raise our eyes, our vision, by service. We can't try to, there's no special glasses you can put on, and then you see the goddess of fortune with Krishna. It's service. Service means that we come under the energy of the internal energy of Krishna. Service and devotional service means we come under the internal energy, and that internal energy purifies us from our material contamination. And when our senses become purified, then we can see things as they actually are, including eventually we can see Krishna. Krishna comes before the devotee who has a purified desires. He's attracted to such a devotee. That's one of the qualities of advanced devotional service. Krishna Akarshini, which is actually a prema. But even when not a prema, still what two qualities in sadhana bhakti are, for our bhakti shastri graduates, what are the two qualities of pure devotional service in sadhana bhakti? I'll give you a hint. One of them is klesha agni. Subhada, yes. Gives one auspiciousness. Auspiciousness, subhada. Auspiciousness means that we're getting purified from our material modes of nature, and therefore what's manifested is more or less goodness. We become non-violent, as Prabhupada said, we become vegetarians, we develop good qualities, we're polite, we're considerate. We see all living entities as spiritual beings. We don't try to possess and enjoy in the material world, we try to serve. So that's Subhada and Kleshagni, and therefore if one gets devotional service, then the lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, and madness, when they go away, then we're no longer suffering in the material world. These are our problems. It's not that we don't have enough of something, it's that we have too much of lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, and madness. And because of that, our hearts are burning in the fire of material anxiety. That's the cause of our problems. And then at Bhava Bhakti, there are also two qualities. I'll give you the first one, you can give me the second one. Moksha Lagu Krit. What does that mean? Anyone know? Moksha. What is moksha? What's that? Liberation. And lagu, what does lagu mean? Lagu is the opposite. What is light? Yes, lagu krit. Krit, what is krit? We see that all the time. What's that? Yes, so it makes liberation seem light, insignificant. So Bhava Bhakti is so wonderful, so ecstatic, that even liberation seems like it's insignificant. Or as Prahlad Maharaj said, if pure devotional service or Brahman realization, the happiness in Brahman realization were multiplied 100 trillion times, it wouldn't equal an atomic fraction in one drop of the ocean of pure devotional service. So how much happiness is there in Brahman compared to devotional service? I'll say it again. Just meditate on this. That if the amount of happiness in Brahman realization, which is millions of times more happiness than we're already experiencing, were multiplied 100 trillion times. That's quite a lot, isn't it? 100 trillion times. 100 trillion. It wouldn't equal to an atomic fraction in one drop of the ocean, in the ocean of devotional service. So who wants to get Brahman realization? Don't be shy, you can raise your hand. I mean, Brahman realization is quite as a matter of fact, pure devotional service begins the liberation. So although we may not be liberated, we may still be in the bodily concept of life. We're trying to act on the pure devotional platform, which means that when we're chanting, we just put up our hands and say, all right, I'll forget about all my problems for 50 seconds and just try to, just be happy. Happy doesn't mean I put on a big smile and I'm thinking about all my problems. I just put up my hands and say, all right, I'll dance and I'll forget about all my problems and just listen to the holy name and try to feel Krishna's presence in the holy name. It's not I'll just forget about my problems, just dance like a fool. Now I forget all my problems and then try to utilize that attention and try to feel Krishna's presence, which means we have to soften our heart and try to become receptive. In order to do that, we have to have some faith that actually Krishna and his internal energy are present in the holy name, and if I can become receptive, then I'll experience them. They'll reveal themselves to me. And then the final two qualities in Prema Bhakti are Krishna Akarshini, did I say actually, Moksha Lagu Krit, and Sudurlabha, rarely achieved. And then the two qualities in Prema Bhakti, first one is let's see, Krishna Akarshini, which means what? It only means to attract Krishna. Akarshini means to attract. And then there is Sundarananda Vishep Atma, which means, what does it mean? Yes, it's so much happiness in Prema Bhakti, which is just the beginning of reality, of pure reality, Krishna consciousness, that one does not even perceive that there's such a thing called the material world anymore. Everything becomes spiritual. So much bliss. You can cut it with a knife and serve it to the other devotees. So, that's reality. When one is on the platform of Sundarananda Vikshek Atma, one has one spiritual body is awakened again. Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema Sadhu Kavanoi, Shravanadi Shuddhachite Karyodoy. Then one can actually perceive reality and deal with reality. One has spiritual senses and one can actually act on the spiritual platform. But with material senses, we can't touch spirit. It's not possible because spirit is a different level of subtlety. Even we think we're touching spirit, like Kamsa, Krishna was right on his chest beating him, but Kamsa, his consciousness was somewhere else. And what's actually perceiving is not our senses. What's actually perceiving is the soul. So if the soul is asleep or covered by illusion, he can't actually touch spirit. Of course, why Krishna is so kindly being on Kamsa's chest and beating him to death, Kamsa became purified by such contact. Still, he didn't understand who Krishna was exactly. Just like when Krishna killed Hiranyaksha in the form of Varaha, or he killed him in the form of Nrsimhadev, neither Hiranyaksha nor Ravana understood who they were being killed by. So their consciousness was not pure, arurukshena parampadam pada, yanyera vandaksha vimukta maninastvadasta bhavada vishuddha buddhaya. Their intelligence was still covered, and therefore they didn't get right away pure Krishna consciousness. They emerged in Brahman because their intelligence was still covered. So we're trying to understand we can't get the goddess of fortune without Krishna, the real goddess of fortune. Sometimes Krishna, just like Lord Shiva on behalf of Krishna, will give one material opulence, as if this is real fortune. But actually it's a problem. It's not really benefit, it's a problem. Just like if you have a car, then you have to have so many problems taking care of the car. So many worries, someone's going to steal your car, someone's going to write some nasty thing on the hood, someone's going to break your glass. Anyhow, someone will crash into your car, you have to pay for the insurance. So having a car is worse than having a little child. Because at least the child will grow up and maybe do something for your benefit. All the car is going to do is grow old and collapse, and you're going to have to take care of it. Now that's if you have one car. If you have two cars, then you have twice the problems. Twice the expense, twice the problems, twice the anxiety. So one is thinking I'm advancing, but one is advancing in anxiety. The more one has, the more anxiety one has. Therefore, real opulence is not a bunch of material elements put together and we're in the illusion that we're making some progress. Real opulence is spiritual opulence, the opulence of one who's actually has the goddess of fortune, Krishna. Then all the material opulence comes automatically, whatever opulence one needs, because the devotee has no attraction for it, because there's no pleasure in it. It's like if you give someone an orange, beautiful orange, but there's nothing in the orange. It's just all peel. It's just emptied out. There's nothing. All you have is the skin and the... So you get enough oranges like that, they give you a whole bunch of oranges, you bite into the first one, there's nothing there. Just a waste of time. So when they say, well, try the second one. You try the second one, the same thing. The third one, the same thing. Why don't you try one more? No, I'm not going to waste my time. So one who's actually tasting the beauty of the spiritual world and the beauty of Krishna, then the pale material energy becomes insignificant. And the pale service to the material energy, which is also directed by an expansion of the goddess of fortune called Maya, she's also directing our service. As she directs our service in the spiritual world, we go back to the spiritual world, it's just not just us and Krishna. In the spiritual world, Krishna's representatives direct us there too. It's not that finally I got to the spiritual world and I'm free to do whatever I want. No, we're directed to get before Radha and Krishna. One has to be trained up by Krishna's associates and their assistants. And you can't even see Radha and Krishna and do them any service unless it's done under the direction of their assistants. So here, we're also being directed by the energy of Krishna, the spirit, the perverted reflection of the energy of Krishna. Of course, Maya is not a perverted energy. She's Krishna's energy, but her service she gives us is a reflection of the real service. So that's what we have to decide, whether we want to try to steal Maya, this illusory energy, and take control of it and enjoy it, which is just an illusion, or we want to serve under the actual internal energy of Krishna. We want to serve Krishna's internal energy, and therefore serve Lakshmi Narayan or Radha and Krishna, and come under their influence, the influence of bliss, knowledge eternally. Or we want to serve Maya here and imagine that we're the controllers and enjoyers and simply suffer under ignorance eternally. So that's our choice. Do we want Maya? We want to serve Maya. We want to serve the goddess of fortune. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for many interesting analogies. And regarding this car that's like an empty orange repeatedly, you sometimes see that that's a customary attitude a neophyte transcendentalist has towards the body, that it's like this bothersome broken car, and therefore devotees either will sometimes not take care of their bodies, or sometimes the temple cars tend to, in some places, tend to have a much shorter lifespan than cars that are taken care of privately. So how to find the balance between understanding the empty prospects of enjoying this body and taking proper care of the body, the cars, the property?
Well, it's a question of understanding whose body it belongs to. If we know it belongs to Krishna, that it's not our body, and that we're responsible to utilizing Krishna service properly. Similarly, the car doesn't belong to us, it belongs to Krishna. And the goddess of fortune will be very upset if we utilize it improperly. Just like when Brigamuni kicked on Lord Vishnu's chest, the goddess of fortune became very disturbed, took away all the opulence from all the Brahmins. So if we misuse Krishna's property, the goddess of fortune will become very disturbed with us and will wind up in a very unpleasant situation. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami that your body doesn't belong to you, it belongs to me, and it's meant to be utilized in my service, so you should take care of it, not destroy it. Is that right? Anything else? Yes.
Prabhupada, in the purport, he says that we should pray to them together only, always. So can we pray to Lakshmi, Narayan or Radha Krishna, for example, for something like 10 million euros to renovate and rebuild this temple?
You could. We're not going to stop you. And since you're following my directions, you should give me half. You can pray for anything you want. Doesn't mean Krishna's necessarily going to give it to us. Nor do you have to pray, you have to pray for it. If you want, Krishna, why should he give you 10 million? Why not pray for 100 million? Why just limit it? Krishna owns everything. Generally speaking, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't pray like that. He prayed for pure devotional service. And if we get pure devotional service, then Krishna will figure out what we need to serve him with. Then we'd have to pray. As Vasudev Dutt, he prayed that he'd take all the sufferings of all the living entities in this universe, and he'd suffer for them, and they could all go back to the spiritual world. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, no, you don't have to do that. The Supreme Lord is not so incompetent that just by your desire to help all living entities, then the Supreme Lord could could make the arrangement to liberate everyone, just because of your desire. So if we desire to serve Krishna, then Krishna he'll make all the arrangements, whatever is necessary for that service. We don't have to separately ask Krishna for anything, just ask him for pure devotional service, and everything else will naturally follow. Yes.
Thank you. You say things will follow naturally, and we see that, for example, Rupa Goswami built the Govindaji temple when Jai Singh, the king of Jaipur, just came and offered to build it.
He was the commander-in-chief of Akbar's army.
Yes. But we also see that, for example, Raghunath Das Goswami refused to take money to renovate the Radhakund and build the ghats until the businessman told him that Narayan predicted he will refuse, and to insist that no, he still should take it for the benefit of others. So what I'm saying is that sometimes devotees may refuse some donations. So what would you say would be the situation where we should refuse?
Depends who it's coming from. who it's coming from and what your capacity to utilize it, and there are many, many factors. Prabhupada said we don't take, for instance, in the Nectar of Instruction, he said we don't take donations from Mayavadis because we may not be able to utilize it properly. We may get contaminated by it. Just like we don't eat it in materialistic houses, people who don't offer their food to Krishna because it's contaminate our consciousness. Because, the contribution comes along with a certain type of consciousness too. So we have to be able to digest it or else we'll get indigestion. If we're under the not accepting too many disciples in nectar of instruction, nectar of devotion, or building costly temples, Prabhupada says that generally the sannyasis, they travel and they accept disciples because without accepting disciples there's no advancement of the Hare-Krishna movement. But sometimes, there may be an unqualified person, but still sometimes the sannyasi may accept them with the idea that he can elevate them and make them qualified. But if he accepts such disciples simply for some material benefit, then he'll become contaminated, may fall down because of such materialistic idea.
What do we tell then
What's
to
that?
the person that we are not taking something? How do we refuse politely?
Well, Prabhupada was walking along the pier in San Francisco, and one man approached him with a fish and said, "Would you like this fish?" And Prabhupada said, "No, you enjoy. It's all right." I don't." And then Prabhupada kept on walking with his sannyas disciples and turned to them when he was out of hearing of that man, he said, "And suffer." So smile, very polite. No, it's all right. I don't need it right now. Maybe later or something. Very kind of you. Otherwise, it probably would have taken the... I think Prabhupada was walking along, and he was saying, on a morning walk, he said, "See that house, one day we'll get a house like that for Krishna." And the devotee said, "Jai, Prabhupada." And then they saw a car, and Prabhupada said, "One day we'll get a car like that from Krishna." "Yes, Jai, Prabhupada." And then Prabhupada saw a dog, and said, "One day we'll get a dog like that for Krishna." And the devotee said, "Jai, Prabhupada." And said, "Dog, what are we going to do with the..." Prabhupada turned to the devotee and said, "Dog, what are we going to do with the dog?" Fools. That's how we accept everything for Krishna. Because nowadays they've always said, "Dog, yeah, sure, I need a dog." Anything else? Yes.
Thank you for inspiring lecture. You mentioned about also the danger of associating with materialists. So when we are somehow or other in contact with materialists, what are the signs that we are associating with them too much? How can we recognize that?
Well, when they start singing some rock song and we start going, we're getting overly influenced. Or we start remembering, the Beatles songs from, if you'd listened to the Beatles. It's a sign. If we start thinking about things that we're not supposed to think about, it's a bad sign. Kvala Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Gaur Premanande.